We're at Tayammum now.
Yes. So, if you don't mind clipping this one for us.
Bismillah. Let us try. Mashallah, looks nice, huh? Thank you. It's a very nice gadget. I really like it. Thank you. No, it makes life easier. I was always knocking over coffee and then I have it against the coffee. I want to drink coffee, but my coffee gets cold and then, you know. So this, subhanAllah, small things, but they're so important.
It'll fit nicely in your bag as well.
Excuse me?
It'll fit nicely in your bag as well.
Yes.
It won't take up a lot of space.
Yes, definitely. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. With the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will continue with our journey through the tayammum. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this beneficial. So what we are doing, we are just reading everything again. So now we are looking at Bab at-Tayammum. As we see, barakallahu fikum, as I always say, it is important for the Muslim to know his religion and to study his religion. And there are three things which every Muslim has to know. It is not an option. So three things are required for every Muslim to know. It is not an option. The first thing is fiqh. The first thing is fiqh. So I'm not saying them in order of importance, but the first thing is fiqh. So the first thing every Muslim needs to know is how to pray, how to fast, but also how to buy, how to sell, how to get married, how to get divorced. Whatever you are doing in your life, you should have fiqh of it. As I said at the very beginning, if there is an absence of fiqh, there is an absence of adl. If there is an absence of fiqh, there is an absence of adl, of justice. Because the human being generally will always judge in his or her own favor. That's the human being. And today, because we don't have any fiqh, we seem to be going by, I think that I'm right. I think you are wrong. So people now, they start judging things around them through their own emotions. But the problem is that very often we haven't been cleaning our hearts, we haven't been cleaning our souls, meaning that we are looking through wrong emotions. We are not even looking through pure hearts very often. So this is why when we will introduce fiqh into our lives, there will be no dhulm. And this is why Muhammad al-Shaybani, rahmatullahi alayhi, when he was asked, why don't you write a book about the soul? Why don't you write a book about the soul? He said, I have already done so. They said, how so? He said, about fiqh of transactions. I wrote a book about the fiqh of transactions. Because, we can keep on saying brother, brother, sister, sister, but then when we sell, and when we rent, and when we buy, when we write contracts, then all of a sudden we are in the dark. We're in the obscurity of a wrong perception of wrong and right. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He وَضَعَ الْمِيزَانِ أَلَّا تَطْغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ. Allah gave us the scales. These are not just the literal scales, but also the figurative scales of the shara. When the fiqh is absent, dhulm will reign. And the reason why people, brothers, don't like one another anymore, the reason why people might get divorced, the reason why partners have a partnership in a certain trade or whatever, why they stop working together is because of the absence of fiqh. But now if fiqh is present and you know that this is قال الله وقال رسوله, then you don't have a problem. Because now you know, even if it's not in my favor, well, I don't mind. Because the truth will not always be in my favor. Is that clear? The truth will not always be in your or my favor. The truth will sometimes be for you and sometimes against you. So now to come back, when we look at fiqh, we don't look at emotions. Emotions have nothing to do with fiqh. And this is why when you read the book of fiqh, barakallahu fikum, you will see that it's void of any emotion. Like, and if someone breaks a leg, well, the faqih is not going to say, oh, poor person broke a leg. What? He's not telling stories. He's just telling you what to do. So now we come to bab at-tayammum. At-tayammum is whenever a person is not able to use water. And we are getting into detail why. Today what we very often see is some Muslims always carrying a stone. They carry a stone in their handbag, and then what? They walk around, and when it's time to pray, they say, oh, I'm in a public space, let me just do some, rub a stone, and now I will just pray. This is wrong. You're not in the desert, you're not in the rainforest, you are in a city, and in a city we have running water. So to carry that stone with you wherever you go, is wrong. So now we need to know in which cases are we allowed or not allowed to use or to perform the tayammum. The tayammum in the Arabic language stands for qasd, al-qasd, meaning what? Intention, or that which you are aiming for, or that which is a goal. Now that is in the Arabic language. But now when we look at tayammum, this from a Shara'i point of view, this is what we're going to explain. But barakallahu fikum, now you see that when we speak about tayammum in the Hanafi fiqh, you will see in wudu we were not in need of a niyyah. The Hanafis, they say when you perform wudu you are not in need of a niyyah. But when you perform tayammum you are in need of an intention. Why? Because the soil might not be pure. Water is pure. As long as you don't see anything impure in water, then the water is pure. Now, as long as the taste or the smell or the color of water has not been transformed or altered or changed by an external element or an element which usually is not a part of water. Is that clear? So now, when you're coming back, you will see that the soil that you are using, you don't know whether it's pure or not. Maybe 15 minutes before you arrive there, maybe a cat urinated there. You don't know. And it soaks into the soil, and it's absorbed. Maybe it doesn't smell. You don't know. So now your niyyah is important. That you have the niyyah of performing tayammum as a badal. How do we say badal? In exchange. It's a true exchange for the Hanafis. We will explain that later. But in exchange for what? In exchange for the water. Because the soil itself might not be pure. So this is why you need this. So let us read what the ulama say about this. باب تيمم من لم يقدر على استعمال الماء لبعده ميلا أو لمرض أو برد أو خوف عدو أو عطش أو عدم آلة يتيمم بما كان من أجزاء الأرض كالتراب والرمل والجص والكحل. So they are explaining. He says the Mu'allif rahimahullah, and someone who is not able to use water. Now the reason why you are not able to use water can be many. So we are going to give some of the examples which are all considered to be you in a situation where you can't use water. So the first thing they say is the absence of water. And the absence of water can be categorized into two categories. The figurative absence of water and the literal absence of water. So now you are either you don't have water, or either there is water but you can't use it. Okay, so this is the example our scholars say. So first, the absence of water, that miles and miles away there is no water. That's one. We're going to see how we need to look for water according to the Shara. So then, barakallahu fikum, when we are going to have a look at subhanallah, I'm sorry, at the absence, the real absence of water, it is because it is far away. What is far away? Our scholars within the madhab have done taqdeer. You're on a journey, and in a certain diameter, you don't find any water. How far should this be? So now our scholars, they differ. Some said 2 kilometers. Some said 1.856. Some said this, some said that. So in reality, they differ about the exact distance. So what we would say is between 1,500 and 2,400 meters. So somewhere between that. Meaning that it's walking, it's doing an effort, but it's not getting exhausted. Is that clear? So it's not that you need to keep on running, 10 kilometers long and say yes. 1,524. Between 1,5 and 2,4. A kilometer and a half and 2,000 and 2 kilometers, 400 meters. So they say this is for someone who is outside nowhere. Meaning, like if you now know that with your car, you're going to drive 15 minutes. Yes, that's more than 2,500 meters. But we are not going to tell you just perform wudu. Is that clear? Unless you think that your prayer time is about to, what? Leave. Yeah. So that the prayer end, yes, that the prayer time is about to end, then we will tell you perform it. But we're going to look at this. So the first thing is bu'dul ma, that water is far away from you. But they say water being far away from you is not only when it's truly far away from you, but also when you as a person don't have the energy or power to get to the water even if it's just next to you. Because, for example, you were in a car accident or a plane accident. The water is just there. Saying, well, bro, that's not 2 kilometers. It's right next to you. You have to perform wudu. You even need to crawl if your legs don't work anymore. That's not true. Meaning that this person is in a position where water for him is too far to get to. Is that clear? Now, when is he obliged now? When you can't get to water, can also be you laying down on the bed in the hospital, for example, and you can't get to the sink. So now, do you have to ask people to give you water? They said no, only when it's your wife or your child. Your wife or your child. Why? Because they are part of you. But as for others, you are not obliged, because your worship is connected to what you can do, not to what others can do. That's according to the Hanafi fiqh. Is that clear? So, meaning we shouldn't doesn't mean don't do it. It rather means if you don't do it, you don't ask other people, and you perform your wudu, your tayammum, and then your prayer, that both are correct. Is that clear? But it is recommended, according to some, and disliked according to others. Like Abu Hanifa, why? Because he said asking is humiliating yourself. When it is not someone like who works for you. If someone is working for you, then get me the water. Why? You pay him. Your wife, it's normal. That's within the marriage. But other people, it is like begging and asking. And he says the Muslim should not lower himself. So that's an opinion within the madhab that what we don't ask. What did you want to ask, please?
So my mother is very elderly, and sometimes she finds it very difficult
Yes.
to get up and walk from her bed.
Yes.
To the bathroom to do the thing.
Yes.
So is she obliged to ask like myself for water, or can she just do the
Well, the first thing, we're going to turn it around. The children are obliged to take care of that without waiting for her to ask. So that's one. But now, an answer to your question, it all depends. It can even be that performing the wudu for her is difficult, you see. So maybe, you bring the water to the bed, for example, all of a sudden the bed is full of water, which is very uncomfortable. She needs to bow down, which is difficult for her back, her knees. It's exhausting, for elderly people. So in this case, then bringing her the water might do her more bad than good. So it all depends on how she responds, like physically, when using the wudu. Is it difficult? Does the bed get very wet and so forth? Then it's min at-taklif ma la yutaq. And they said for the women, in contrary to the men, they don't have to ask their husband. They don't have to. So the law is easier for them, but the husband has to.
The primary thing for her to do would be, or for us to do would be to get her water. Yes, that would be the primary thing. If she can do it, if it doesn't make her sicker,
if it doesn't exhaust her, if it doesn't wet her in the bed, and then she remains in. So then you need to look for a solution to everything. No? But as long as wudu is possible, tayammum is not allowed. That's clear. So even if you put water next to her bed, for example, and a large vessel where she can do wudu, then that gets preference as well. You see? So it all depends. So now, either because the water is too far away. They say, how do you know whether water is far away? They say, well, either because you already traveled that road, like you know that, okay, water is still 20 kilometers further away, prayer time is about to end. Well, I know that there is no water. So you should only base yourself on what you know, not on the things that could happen. Like you shouldn't say, oh, maybe a truck full of water will pass now, It doesn't work like that. The moment you know that if, according to yourself, you won't find water, then you are allowed to perform the wudu, the tayammum, if you think that prayer time will end before you finding water. Some say, you should try to climb up the highest hill and then look around you. And they say when you're traveling and all of a sudden you see that the water is behind you, you don't need to return. It's only when the water is on the path of your traveling or in the direction. Is that clear? So you don't have to return to get that water because you have already passed there. Is that clear? Okay, so now if you want to, you can. We are always talking about the minimum requirement for your tayammum here to be legit. Is that clear? Okay, so either because it is far away, how do we know? One, by knowing, just because you know the road, by asking people who live in the area. You'll say, I'm sorry, for 50 kilometers or 30 miles, you're not going to find any water. No? Or because you were on the highest hill, you can't see no river, you can't see anything, you perform tayammum. If now, then you carry on after having prayed, perform the tayammum, and all of a sudden you see that actually there was water within 500 meters. No? Meaning, let us say, half a mile. Well, or then now do you have to perform your prayer again? You don't have to. Because at the time where you prayed, your prayer was valid because you lived up to all the conditions. Is that clear? When we're going to look at the Shafi'i fiqh, it will be different. But we are talking about the Hanafi fiqh. So now when you find water later on, you don't have to repeat your prayer. Is that clear? But when you are praying and water is found while praying, then they differ. That's something else. Now we are talking about finding water after having prayed. Your prayer is correct. Okay? But if now you find water without having even tried to look or think, then your prayer, your wudu, your tayammum wasn't valid anyway. So you'll have to repeat your prayer. Because now the difference is you didn't make any effort to see whether there was water or not. Okay? So, من لم يقدر على استعمال الماء. Yes.
If you did your prayer and find the water, is your tayammum nullified once you find the water?
Yes, the moment you find that the water, it's gone. Your tayammum is yes. So that's the only difference for the Hanafis between wudu and tayammum. And the only thing which differentiates between them is the fact that when water is present again, that your tayammum is no longer valid. That's the only thing. For the rest, we say with one tayammum, you can pray as many prayers as you like. So you don't need to perform tayammum for every prayer like in some other madhahib. Okay? So let's continue. من لم يقدر على استعمال الماء لبعده ميلا أو لمرض. Or because of illness. What do they mean? Either someone being ill and using water will increase his illness, or will delay his what? Recovery. Or so either it will increase his illness or delay his recovery, or make him ill if he's not ill already. Who defines this? That using water makes you ill. 2. Ijtihadu al-insanu is that a person does ijtihad for his own self based on something he or she has lived before. Meaning, you know that during winter, whenever you use water, I had a friend like this, then his skin would peel off. In the winter when he would use, that was in Jordan, when he would use water, then his skin would peel off and that would be very painful. He had it, and then 3 days later he tried it again, was the same thing. Even though he didn't see a doctor, now because of the takrar, yani the thing happening over and over again, connected to the same action over and over again, convinced him that this was the reason for him to lose his skin. So he started performing tayammum until he went to a doctor. Is that clear? Or even if someone would not see a doctor, but it would always be the same thing when you use water in a certain period of time, that something would happen, then now you're what? You are allowed to perform tayammum. But you need to see a doctor anyway. And the other one is a doctor. Like you never saw it, he says, don't use water on your skin now. Because something, I don't know, allergy, whatever. So then you're not allowed to use it either. But there should be a doctor whenever you go for an exception on a rule which has to do with the Sharia, then our scholars say you need to go to a doctor who has knowledge of the Sharia. So a doctor telling you you can't fast, you're not allowed to fast, should have knowledge of the Sharia as well. Is that clear? Unless it are very obvious things, right? Like for example, I don't know. Anyway, it's clear, isn't it? So we are going to ask advice from a doctor who has knowledge of the Shara at the same time, and they say someone who practices his religion. So they say al-ilmu bi-shara wa taqwallah. And a doctor, of course. Not just a faqih with taqwa. No? Because he might not know what doctors know. He does not know what doctors know. Okay. من لم يقدر على استعمال الماء لبعده ميلا أو لمرض أو برد, or because it's extremely cold, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want you to perform wudu. Like for example, your water heater, and it doesn't work anymore. You can't heat up water, and it's like 2 degrees below zero. You wake up and you say, I'm going to use water. So you're shivering and trembling and you say, okay, this is ibadah. Well, we know that one of the companions radiallahu anhum didn't use water. Naamin performed tayammum instead. And he led prayer in that state. And then the companions radiallahu anhum, they were confused. So they went to the Prophet ﷺ, and then the Prophet ﷺ told him to explain that matter. And he said, the night was cold and I was afraid that I might die from the cold or get sick, whatever. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he kept on listening, and he said, didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا? Didn't Allah say, don't kill yourselves, Allah has rahmah for you? And I was afraid that the cold could kill me. So the Prophet ﷺ smiled. And we say in Usul al-Fiqh, that the smile of the Prophet ﷺ is an affirmation that which is done in his presence, or that which he heard about, is a part of the Shara. Is that clear? Yes.
But can we say that here, for example, in England, like in London, our winter, is that cold enough to say, for example, if our water heater isn't working, and we used to do the
Yes. I understand what you mean. When it's 2 below zero and your heating is not working because you won't have any warmth in your house and so forth, then definitely it will put you in a state which is a very annoying one, which I believe is an excuse, a valid excuse for someone to perform the tayammum. This is when you're trembling and it's cold, and I don't mean you're just cold, like very cold. Yes, definitely. The thing is, Allah has more rahmah for us than we have with ourselves. So, but I believe that this is an example of something which will most likely not happen. But it might happen. No? So, and you then in the Hanafi fiqh, barakallahu feekum, we very often say that the person himself is the mujtahid li nafsihi, meaning you know what you can bear. Like if you're a bit cold, well, then you're not allowed to perform tayammum. But if you're like really trembling and it's cold and you're really suffering from the cold, well, that's not healthy. Do you understand the difference? So, and this is why for someone it might be when it's 2 below zero, and for someone else it might be when it's 15 below zero. It all depends on how you feel it. That you're a bit cold, yes, but if it's really unhealthy, then no. Okay. He says, أو برد أو خوف عدو. When someone is afraid of a enemy. And this enemy can be from the human beings or can be from the animal kingdom. Now, like you're traveling in Kenya and yes, you're in need of water, you have no water with you, so you're not going to what? Use the water from the lake where all the elephants and tigers and lions come, because then yani, speaks for itself. Okay, so now it could even be haram for you to go there. So it's not like, brother, you better don't do this, you're going to be eaten by a lion. Say, tawakkal ala Allah, let's go. No. I mean here, وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ, says Allah Jalla wa Ala. Don't throw yourself into destruction. Okay? So, or a person, like we have very weird people today, and he's dressed like a clown, and he's in front of that river, and he says, if you try to get to the water, I will kill you and chop off your head. So some say, no, it's haqqun am. And these are the courageous fuqaha, and the others are as well. So they say, no, it's public wealth. He has no right whatsoever to stop me from using it. So I go anyway, and if he fights me, I will fight him back. So you have that option. You also have the option of not going and staying alive, or not killing someone. Okay, so that would be better. But anyway, that's the adu. They also say, and when someone is in debt, and near that well is someone you need to give money to, and if he sees you, he will drag you to prison. He will bring you to prison, and you have the intention to pay back. Not that you have, your pockets filled with money. It's really like, I want to pay, but I can't. And if he sees me, this might get problematic. So then our fuqaha say, in our books, you can find this in the books of Imam Shurambulari and others, then you are not obliged to use that water, because your freedom is important. Unless the qadi has already said that you need to go to prison. That's another thing. Here it's something open, and you say, if he sees me, he's going to take me to what? To the authorities, for example, whatever. So, and of course you have the niyyah to pay it back, and so forth and so forth. So now, أو خوف عدو أو عطش, or you are, and I gave the examples, you're afraid to become thirsty. We gave the examples, when you go on holiday, you have your children with you, this is what is left. It's like very hot, you're on your way to Spain, and on the radio that happens, they say, watch out for dehydration. You need to get hydrated and so much more. And you're in a traffic jam. Now you are allowed to drink this water, even if you know that because of this you need to perform tayammum. Or you perform tayammum while the water is still there. So you are going to calculate how much will we need to drink and remain hydrated. Then that which is left, that you know that you won't need this, if it's sufficient to perform wudu, you perform wudu with it. And if it's not sufficient, well, you don't perform wudu with it. So that is khawf wa atash. This is when you are, yes.
So in that situation, the example we just gave, you're in a strange place in a traffic jam, would you wait till near the end of the prayer time to see if the traffic moved along, so you can?
Yes.
Because would you make an effort to try to find the water first?
Find the water. Well, then we're still about 1,500, 2,400 meters, right? If sometimes they say the traffic jam is like 15 kilometers, it's 3 hours, so you can calculate somewhere. And otherwise, you just get out of the car if you can, you look, and if you see that it's like a real traffic jam, you don't have to wait. If aghlabu dhann, how do you say aghlabu dhann?
You predominantly think.
If you predominantly think that you won't get out of there before the end of prayer time, then you can do this. Okay? Because in the Hanafi fiqh, we don't have to wait until the end if we know that we are not going to find water anyway. Okay? So here, أو عدم آلة, that there is no instrument to get water out of a well or whatever. So if you don't have the tools to get water out of the rocks or out of the earth, then you don't have to do that. Okay, so even if there is a well with water, we said that last time, you don't need to climb down the well. You don't have to do this, right? You don't need to be inventive, just stay alive and perform tayammum. He says, وَيَتَيَمَّمُ بِمَا كَانَ مِنْ أَجْزَاءِ الْأَرْضِ كَالتُّرَابِ وَالرَّمْلِ وَالْجِسِّ وَالْكُحْلِ. The best way to describe that which we can do tayammum with is that which is a path of the earth, I mean, when earth, I don't mean earth. Rock, stone, sand. We say sand? Yes, that's soil. Yani, but that which can't be melted and that which doesn't turn into ashes when burnt. When it burns, it doesn't turn into ashes, and when put in fire, it doesn't melt. That which is burnt and turns into ashes, like a tree. You're not allowed to perform tayammum on a tree. Or gold and silver. They would say, but if there is soil on gold and silver, then I can do it, but then I'm doing it on the soil. I'm not doing it on silver. Do you understand the difference? No. I have one of my fuqaha who said, look, we in the Hanafi fiqh, we don't come to a point where we say, well, if you can't do tayammum and you can't do you can't do tayammum and you can't do wudu, then just pray like that. So now he said there is even how do you call this? Dust in the air. So he said our last resort is going like this. Even if we don't see there is dust. He said because in tayammum it is not the soil which is purifying you, it's the action. You see, it's the action. So he says the last resort would be to go in the air with the niyyah and then just go like this. And this was Shaykh Dr. Salah al-Hajj in his explanation of Tuhfat al-Muluk in 2006 when I was attending his classes. So that was his opinion. He would also say, like here there is dust, without us knowing it or not. Oh, my clothes, there is dust. So this would be the last resort. If you can really find something, then of course you're going to do this. But if you can't, then it would be this or this and not nothing. Is that clear for everybody? Right. Yes. And then always with the intention that it's for the dust on it. Because in reality, this here, we can't do tayammum on it. One, because it's wood. Two, because it's painted. Now, so it's paint. So this here burns and melts and does everything. But because of the dust on it, we are allowed to do it. So is the difference clear? So now you can say you can actually do it on everything. Right? That is when there is dust on it. Okay. So some say the dust should be clear to the eye, meaning that if you go like this, there should be something visible. If it's nothing visible, you wouldn't be allowed to do so because there isn't. Okay. Others would say, yes, on an object, if you can't see anything, you can't, but in the air you can, because it's obvious that if the sun rays would shine through the window, that you would see the dust flying around. Is that clear? So our scholars are, yes, quite inventive. It says, أو عدم آلة يتيمم بما كان من أجزاء الأرض كالتراب والرمل and so forth. He said, ولا بد فيه من النية. As we said at the beginning, you need to have your intention. Then ويستوي فيه المحدث والجنب والحائض. And all share the same ruling, all of he who is in a minor state of impurity and he who is in a major state of impurity, or a woman at the end of her menses. You see? So this to allow themselves to pray again. So now the question which is asked. So if a man and... Okay, let's just do this one first. So you can perform tayammum instead of wudu. You can perform tayammum instead of ghusl. And you can perform tayammum if there is no water or you can't use water for what? No, when the menses end, when the menstruation ends. Is this clear? So, وصفة التيمم. And the way that tayammum goes, أن يضرب بيديه على الصعيد فينفضهما ثم يمسح بهما وجهه. And the first thing is when you perform tayammum, you what? You go on the soil and then what do? ينفضهما, you go like this. Because as we said, this is to remove the what? The dust or the sand or whatever is on your hands. Because the goal is not to do isti'ab of the sand on your on your face. So the goal is not like, here I am, I look different now. No, the goal is that just Bismillah, like this, you go over every part of your face. But the sand, unlike water, shouldn't touch every part of your body, but your hands have to. Is the difference clear? No. So, and this is why, because the sand in itself is not purifying. Not in this case at least. وصفة التيمم أن يضرب بيديه على الصعيد, and then فينفضهما, goes like this, so that the sand would fall off, or the dust of his hand palms, and he says ثم يمسح بهما وجهه, then you go over your face, and then ثم يضربهما كذلك, then you do this a second time now, ويمسح بكل كف ظهر ذراع الأخرى وباطنها مع المرفق. I should have brought my glasses. So he says, and with each hand you will what? You will wipe the other. I don't think we have the same. It depends. MashaAllah, you have everything with you today. MashaAllah, barakallahu feekum. If this works, it's incredible. Oh no. Now I see the Allah Akbar. No, I see the world very flu. Okay, good. So we do it the second time. With your right hand you go over your left. And do we only do it over the hands, or do we go until the elbows? Until the elbows. Okay. So, and we need to do the isti'ab of it, right? We need to go over everything. And we also go between what? Between our fingers. So he says, rahimahullah azza wa jal, ثم يضربهما كذلك ويمسح بكل كف ظهر ذراع الأخرى وباطنها مع المرفق والاستيعاب شرط. Now meaning, touching every part of the limb that you are doing tayammum over should be touched. Now, exactly like water. But in this case, what did we say? Not the soil, but the hand, the skin. Okay. Then he says, rahimahullah azza wa jal, وَيَجُوزُ قَبْلَ الْوَقْتِ. You are allowed to perform tayammum before the time or prayer time. He says before prayer time. So before dhuhr, you can already do it. And he says, وَقَبْلَ طَلَبِ الْمَاءِ. And even before you were looking for water. But he didn't say and pray. He said you can perform the tayammum before the prayer time comes in. Then you perform the tayammum, but then you still have to look for water. If you find water, your tayammum is invalid. If you don't find water, you can now use the tayammum you perform before looking for water. It will be a valid one. Is it understood? So some people understand this in the wrong way when they read this. He says وَقَبْلَ طَلَبِ الْمَاءِ وَلَوْ صَلَّى بِالتَّيَمُّمْ ثُمَّ وَجَدَ الْمَاءَ لَمْ يُعِدْ. He said, and if someone prayed with the tayammum and then found water, then he doesn't have to repeat that prayer. وَإِنْ وَجَدَهَا فِي خِلَالِ الصَّلَاةِ تَوَضَّأَ. So now you are praying, and he says, when you are in prayer and you find water, then you need to perform wudu. How are you going to find water in prayer? What do they mean? It starts raining, mashallah. Starts raining. That might be nice. If the rain is hard enough, like in the Amazon, then that's enough water to perform wudu. But usually they say, when you hear someone cry out, we found water. Is that clear? Or some say you found water that within your salah, all of a sudden you remember that you had water. Now the scholars differ. If you remember that you have water in a place where you usually don't put your water, does it then annul your salah? It still does, because you remembered that you had water. But now, if you have prayed already and you looked in every space for water and you didn't find water, not in your car, not in your bags, you looked, you said no water, and you've prayed, and now later on under your chair, now your car chair, you find a bottle of water. Is now your prayer invalid or not? They say, look, if you usually put the water under your chair, now, and you didn't look there, then your prayer is invalid. If you never put your water there, so you didn't look there, then your prayer is valid. So it all comes down to you looking in places where you might think water to be or to be found. So if you have the habit of putting water in your trunk, and you didn't look in your trunk, and then you found water after the salah, and you looked in all places, well, it doesn't count. I forgot to mention one thing. They say the absence of water is, I said figuratively or what? Literally speaking. So if now the water is very expensive, like you're driving on a road somewhere in Sudan, and you see this shop made out of wood, and they know that you're a foreigner, and you ask water. Say, well, this bottle of water, my friend, $15, or even $6 or $5. Then you're not obliged to buy it, even if you can. This is an opinion of the madhab. Why? They say maybe you can, but next one can't. So you will be helping someone to transgress and also to misuse your money and to do dhulm. They say, but if the water is more expensive than it usually is, they say by a third, then you buy it. And now they say, but what if it's more than 2 or 3 times expensive than it usually is? They say then you look at the place where it's sold. Meaning, if you go to a restaurant, then a little bottle of water can be £3. While that same amount of water might be at Lidl for 45 cents. So now there is no dhulm. They say لِكُلِّ مَقَامٍ مَقَالٍ, meaning that every situation has another opinion. So if now you find water and you can afford it, and you find a Hilton, you say, I want to buy a bottle of water. Say the bottle of water, the price list is what? It's £3.5 for this amount of water. You can buy it, you have to buy it. Why now? Because in those places water is more expensive. Does that make sense or not? What doesn't make sense?
No, it makes sense. It's funny that people can have that, charging different amounts for the same thing.
No, it is not. In a hotel, everything is more expensive, isn't it? And in a restaurant as well.
Let's go to the bathroom.
Excuse me?
Let's go to the bathroom.
Yes. No, it's normal because they are providing a service. So if they buy it for the same price as we buy it, they don't make profit. So that's why. Okay. Well, is that clear, this last part here? Okay. Do you have any questions about what has been said until now? I have the feeling that I'm talking you asleep. You can rest, no problem. I was not talking about you actually. But in general, is everything okay?
There was one question.
Yeah.
So when you do the arms,
Yes.
you hit the rock,
Yes.
and you knock off the dust.
Mhm.
You do one arm. Do you then go back to the rock, or you've already done?
No. One thing is for both arms. First one for the face, second one for the arms, right? So you don't need to go 2 times, one for each. Okay.
Questions kind of related. So it's easy when you can just go on the earth like that. But what if you have like a rock that's this big? How you
Then you don't need to slap it. You just need to rub over it.
So you just rub it.
Yes, that's okay. Yes. But the basic ruling is that we and not really hard, right? We just go like this. Some say it's a sunnah to move, no? And then to go like this. But if it's like a sharp rock, then we're not gonna go like this. We're just gonna go over it, no? And then we go like this. As I said, yani, it's not the soil which is purifying, it's the action. Okay. So here, let us continue so that this chapter is behind us. He says, if someone prays with tayammum and then finds water, then he shouldn't repeat his prayer. And if he finds it during prayer, either by hearing it or by remembering it, then he ends his prayer. He says, then وَيُصَلِّي بِالتَّيَمُّمِ الْوَاحِدِ مَا شَاءَ يعني خلافا للشافعية. Yani with one tayammum, he can pray whatever he wants. Yani you pray dhuhr or asr, as long as your tayammum has not been annulled, you can pray with it what you like. Because we say it's a true badal. it's really replacing the wudu. Only with one difference, that's when you find water, the tayammum is no longer valid, or when you can use water again. Okay. So here he said, then وَيُسْتَحَبُّ تَأْخِيرُ الصَّلَاةِ لِمَنْ طَمِعَ فِي الْمَاءِ. If you think that you might find water, even behind the 2,400 meters, then it's better for you to delay your prayer. Even your prayer would be valid. If you know it's within that time and you want to pray now, so they say if you think you're going to find water before the prayer time ends, then it is recommended for you to delay your tayammum. وَتَجُوزُ الصَّلَاةُ عَلَى الْجَنَازَةِ بِالتَّيَمُّمِ. You are allowed to perform the tayammum for salat al-janaza إِذَا خَافَ فَوْتَهَا لَوْ تَوَضَّأَ. Yani, that you want to perform salat al-janaza and you say, if I now perform wudu, then I won't be able to pray the janaza. So in this case, you are allowed to perform tayammum and to pray, even though when there is water. What is the difference? Well, the asl is that the janaza is only once. When it escapes you, it has escaped you. You understand what I mean? Secondly, in salat al-janaza, there is no ruku' and no sujood. So there are differences, they say. So this is one. The reason why they say this is because back in the days, the salat al-janaza would be performed by the wali or someone who was appointed by the wali, and nobody else would lead the janaza prayer, meaning that it would be done and it was finished, right? So anyway, وَبِالتَّيَمُّمِ إِذَا خَافَ فَوْتَهَا لَوْ تَوَضَّأَ وَكَذَلِكَ صَلَاةُ الْعِيدِ وَلَا يَجُوزُ لِلْجُمْعَةِ وَإِنْ خَافَ الْفَوْتِ. And also you are not allowed to perform tayammum if you fear that the Jum'ah that you won't be able to pray the Jum'ah with the Imam. What's the difference now? Exactly. So if you miss Jum'ah, you still have Dhuhr. But if you miss the Janazah, there is no other Janazah. You see? So this is the difference. So if you fear to pray, if you fear that you won't be able to pray Jum'ah, you are not allowed to perform tayammum. But you are when it comes down to Janazah. Now, he says, I'm going to finish this sentence. وَلَا لِلْفَرْضِ إِذَا خَافَ فَوْتَ الْوَقْتِ. Also for the fard prayer. You are not allowed to say, oh, the time is about to end, I'm going to quickly perform tayammum and pray. No. If there is water, you're too late. You need to do qada now. And if it's due to yourself being negligent of your prayer, then that's a sin. A big sin. Not praying on time. Yes, somebody? Yes.
I was going to ask you this about.
You wanted to ask me about that?
No, so that sentence is very
Ah, okay. So it's clear? Okay. Then, وَيَنْقُضُهُ نَوَاقِ الْوُضُوء. Everything which annuls your wudu, annuls your tayammum, with the difference that I've already mentioned. And then the last part here, وَيَطْلُبُ الْمَاءَ مِنْ رَفِيقِهِ فَإِنْ مَنَعَهُ تَيَمَّمَهُ. And also you ask your friend that you are traveling with whether he has water. Abu Hanifa says no. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah says, you don't ask your friend even if you know that he will say yes. For the same reason, because you're izzah. You're not going to ask and beg from others. Done. You don't have water, you don't need to ask. If he gives it without you asking it, then you have to use it. Because now it's a hiba. Now it's a gift. And you can accept the gift. So now in this case, you should accept the gift. Why? Because it allows you to perform the wudu. So then the last thing, we have 1 minute left. He says, وَلَا يَجْمَعُ بَيْنَ الْوُضُوءِ وَالتَّيَمُّمِ. One doesn't join between tayammum and wudu. فَمَنْ كَانَ بِهِ جَرَاحَةٌ غَسَلَ بَدَنَهُ إِلَّا مَوْضِعَهَا وَلَا يَتَيَمَّمُ لَهَا. Like the Shafi'iyah, for example. So now, if you have a place that you can't wash, we're not going to say perform just a tayammum. We are going to say perform the wudu. That part which you can't wash, you just don't wash. And you're not going to do tayammum over it or for it. Is that clear? So in the Shafi'i madhab, they would combine between the wudu and the tayammum. So they do tayammum for the limb or the part we can't wash. Is that clear? Yes.
We can't wash white because of injury.
Yes, injury, yes, of course, yes, because of injury and so forth. No. Okay, that's it, inshallah. I'm sorry. I really feel that I have tired you. No? But it's a different atmosphere, isn't it? Like the first class and the second class?
Yeah.
Yes. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Okay, so we've repeated that again. So good.